Alright y'all, here we are again, a CRC video on the ASDE-X. According to the VNAS documentation on their website, it says the Airport Surface Detection System Model X ASDE-X is a ground radar system used at major airports across the NAS. CRC's ASDE-X displays closely simulate the real-world system used by the FAA. It is intended for use by clearance delivery, ground, and local controllers at equipped facilities. Of course, at ZAU, this would be O'Hare, Midway, and Milwaukee. So we'll go ahead and press Control B on our display here. Brings up our top bar here, the title bar. Of course, you can use the control commands for any of these commands that you could also click in the top left corner. In this case, we'll go ahead and connect as South Local Control on Sweatbox 2. It says inactive until we activate our session. And now we can also go through these commands here. Save profile as once we've created our profile and we've got our windows and everything set the way we like. Profile settings, of course, is the name of your profile and your controller info, should you choose to put anything in there. General settings, your VATSIM user ID or CID password. These are all default. I would suggest leaving these as default, including the aircraft select key, which is the add key on your number pad on your keyboard. Display settings, show DCB, which is our display box at the top here. Show status text, I would suggest turning that on. That does not default on when you create a profile. Show full METAR we don't need to do because we can simply click that METAR at the top to get the full METAR at any time. Do you want the status text at the top or the bottom? And do you want to disable mouse, pan, and zoom, or do you want to be able to essentially freely move the ASDE around? Pretty much covers that up there. We'll go ahead and go through the DCB itself. Again, this is not going to be a comprehensive video. It's going to be more of a, these are the items that I think that you need to know to be successful with the ASDE. So we've got a number of things here. We can use our mouse scroll wheel to zoom in and out, right click to pan. You can also simply type up here what you want for the range should you ever want to or need to do that. Map position, just a left click and a left click. Rotate and then mouse wheel. Undo or default. Day or night. And preferences we don't really need. Brightness, you can see, again, custom tailor this to your liking. We can do undo again. Character size, this may be something you want to do depending on your monitor's resolution. You can see what all these different items do here. Safety logic, this is probably one of the most, if not the most important thing that you'll need with the ASDE itself. When I click here, watch on this left side, you'll see it says safety logic. We want to open and close the runways, whichever runways we have in use for the day. Runway config, west or east flow, very important. 4s or 2s. And then of course tower config and arrival orders are basically the same structure here. If we have a tower controller on, the tower controller will more than likely handle this, but we want to make sure that that is on. That way we get the safety alerts and the safety logic. That's the sort of thing that will say, runway occupied, go ahead, go around, that sort of thing. Tools. New window, resize window, delete window, window position. That's all for this window or any other additional windows that we use, and I'm going to show you some of that here in a minute. History on or off, coast on or off, those sorts of things I'm going to show you here too. Most of this I would just suggest leaving as the default. Temp data, we're going to get into that momentarily, and then a little bit about data blocks. I want to pop back over here to their documentation. Shows again the color schemes, day or night, targets, the 4 types of targets that you'll see on the ASDE. The blue diamond, of course, unknown. It's typically when an aircraft is squawking standby, so we want to tell that aircraft to squawk normal. Our regular aircraft, heavy aircraft, including 757s, assigned to category L. We'll talk about that momentarily, and then suspended targets as well. There's your target history, the bubbles behind, or the target vector lines out in front. And data blocks we're going to get into here too. To move data blocks, you can use the numbers on your keypad and click an individual aircraft, or the number on the keypad, press enter to move all of those data blocks. Here's in field G of our data block, the aircraft category. I'm going to show you this again here in a second. Different categories, the B's, the L's, the J's, the W's. You're going to see all of these different things in those data blocks. For instance, a B is a heavy and TCAS. For the purposes of ASDE, all non-piston aircraft are assumed to have TCAS. So let's go ahead and go through some of this a little bit. We can move data blocks around. For instance, I can press 4 and enter to move all the data blocks. 9 and enter puts them back to where they were, or I can just move this one by, let's say, a 7 and left click. The data blocks themselves, if we take a closer look, we can also do data block edit. And so do I want full or partial data blocks? Do I want the altitude? Probably not necessary for the ASDE. That's what the stars display is for, is the tower controller, the type of aircraft on or off, sensors on or off, that would be the fusion mode, category on or off. There is that what we were talking about there, the T or the B or the L, the velocity, speed, that would be basically their ground speed. The fix on or off, very important for this one, for your tower and ground controllers to make sure aircraft are going the right runway for that first fix, or assigning a heading as the tower controller. And then scratch pads on or off. These could just be left as default. There's really no need to change any of that. I can't see any reason why you would need to change any of that. Looking at more data blocks, I can right click on an aircraft and I can bring up a menu. So I can see the aircraft, the call sign, the beacon code, the type, the aircraft, the fix, and then I've got scratch pad options. For instance, I can do an AAA in scratch pad 1, a BBB in scratch pad 2, and you can see what we've got there. And what's useful, or why that is useful, is because perhaps I have an aircraft that says he wants to go to a specific gate. And so in that case, maybe he says he wants to go to Charlie 25. And I can put that in the scratch pad for everyone to see that he wants to go to Charlie 25. Another great thing about these right clicking on an aircraft, I can also hold left control and left click an aircraft to bring up a flight plan. Now let's say I've got my VFR target up here to the north, and that's 177 Alpha Charlie. And he's probably going to come in squawking 1200, so we'll go ahead and change him to a 1200 code. And what you're going to see here is if I bring up his flight plan, I may not have much information. Perhaps the VFR aircraft didn't give me any information or file a flight plan. But if we solicit for some information, we might find out that this aircraft wants to do some pattern work here, VFR at O'Hare. So we'll go ahead and enter that information. And as you know by now, we give aircraft that want to do pattern work that 1200 code. But how do I know who this is? I know it's 177 Alpha Charlie. I collected some information, but what I can do is I can right click and I can type that information in here and essentially force correlate this information to that aircraft. Category I'm not too worried about. That's a Cessna 172. Fix, scratch pads, not too worried about, but you can see then that at least I have the information that I put in through the manipulation. I can also do the scratch pads with textual commands. For instance, multifunction, which is F7 and H, and then left click a target, and then type in what I want for the scratch pad and hit enter for scratch pad 2. F7, Y, left click the aircraft, then type in the scratch pad and enter to do it that way. I personally just think it's easier just to right click on the aircraft and do it that way. All right, a few other things. Temporary data. So you can see down here we've got the red areas drawn. I've got an X here on this runway. Now our policy says with the ASDE, when a runway is closed, use the following procedures. Add price to closure on the ATIS, an X placed on a runway closed, a red box drawn around any portion of runway not available for taxi, and the helipad when not available for landing. When a runway or taxiway is inactive, unusable, or restricted, a yellow trait box and an X shall be placed on the ASDE indicating the runway is inactive. And runways and taxiways unavailable for taxi shall be depicted by closed trait areas, which is the red boxes, and restricted areas shall be depicted by a yellow trait area. What I do want to say about this is it is persistent, so whatever you draw on this ASDE, once you disconnect, that's what the next controller will see as well. So we don't want people just going in here and drawing all over the ASDE. But I can show you how to do this. To find closed area, we're going to go ahead and click, and I'm just going to draw a red box over here with 4 left clicks and a middle click. A restricted area with 4 left clicks and a middle click. And that's how we draw those areas. We can also do text. For instance, maybe I want to put closed, and I'll press enter, and I'll left click, and I can put text on the ASDE. Again, these are not things that we want you doing just randomly, but should you ever need to. And then to get rid of it, delete global, we'll left click, middle click, left click, middle click, left click, and middle click. That's how we do that. And I think there's one other thing that I want to go through with you today, and that would be how to set up additional windows. This is something that you may find useful. You probably know that you don't want to be zoomed way in so that you can see everything that's happening. And the way to do that here would be Tools. Let's do a new window, and we're going to go ahead and draw ourselves a new window. And that's all with left clicks. Once I click done here, I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can find where my airport is. And I'm just going to maybe zoom in on the terminal. Now if I want to move that window, I can simply middle click inside the window, left click to drop. If I want to resize it, I can hold shift, middle click. It says resize window. And then I get a resizing border. This is my active window. This is my secondary. Now if I left click here, now this becomes my active again. And I can do what I need to do, although it doesn't need to be active to scroll and zoom. I think that's all I wanted to show you today. If you have any questions, check the VNAS documentation. Otherwise, our Discord for ZAU. Ask your mentors and instructions. I think that's all I have for you today. I hope that helps.